Welcome to episode 55 of the Adam Makes Beer Industry Pro podcast. Today, I'm excited to be chatting with Cody Sherwood. Before we get rolling, let's give a shout out to our fantastic sponsors that make content like this possible. Starting a brewery is a big step. Blickman Engineering is here to help. Since 2006, they've equipped hundreds of nano breweries for success. Their new 3.5 barrel Pro Surface electric brewing system cuts maintenance and saves at least 30 minutes per brew day with powerful under kettle heating. From 1 to 15 barrel brew houses to keg washers, grain mills, Blickman has what you need. Ready to go pro? Contact Phil or Tom at proseries@blickmanengineering.com. Blickman Engineering is a proud sponsor of this channel and loves to help brewers at every stage of their journey. Tracking and managing the financial health of your brewery is a primary pillar of success. Check out my boy David Lentz at Brewed Fiscally. This man has the industry experience and skills you need so you can focus on growing your business. Bookkeeping, fractional CFO support, financial management system design, business plan review, hit up your boy. Check him out at brewedfiscally.com or shoot him an email at david@brewedfiscally.com. He's good people. I know the list of things that I say that David does, I understand like what 3 of those things are, FYI, but you're not interested in that. Today's guest is Cody Sherwood, a 12-year industry veteran who brews for Wichita Brewing. During his career, he has won a combination of 10 GABF and World Beer Cup medals. He is also the host of the Less Hate, More Lager podcast and is a mental health advocate. Cody, good to have you on, man.
Dude, thanks for having me, man. I'm excited to do my first or second video podcast. I typically haven't I haven't graduated to the video stuff just yet.
For sure. So have you done none of your stuff is live, right? Do you do anything live?
No, I haven't really done the live. I've been saying I need to dig into the more video quality stuff, but the way I do it is just podcast and then over the phone and just try to have a good conversation there. It doesn't require much editing. I mean, I still hardly know what I'm doing, but I'm doing it. I'll just keep recording episodes, try to stay consistent with it. And then, I don't know, some of the episodes get a little off topic and I never know what people are going to say. And I have no editing ability. Well, I mean, I could figure it out, but yeah, nothing crazy too far. I mean, just kind of get off on a little tangent sometimes.
You know, it is funny though how low the bar is for starting to do stuff like this, because when I started the YouTube channel, I mean, I was 45. I'd never made a video before. I'd never edited a video before. At that point, I wasn't using social media at all. And the tools are getting easier and easier. You know, I think most people wouldn't think, you know, listening to your podcast, it's a couple of people talking over the phone. It's pretty wild how accessible that stuff is becoming.
Oh, for sure. And I do have good equipment. I just don't exactly know how to use it. And you're exactly right though. It's never been more accessible to start a podcast. And anyone I've been doing it for a year and a half. Yeah. Anyone, even my friends who are not even in beer, they're like, I want to start a podcast. And my, message would be do it. Just go.
Yeah.
Buy the stuff, figure it out. You'll figure it out. And if you lock down for just a day, you'll figure out how to at least record.
Yep. And there's enough tutorials and stuff out there. You know, when you said, you know, the equipment, I was laughing because I bought a GoPro in December, and I've been sitting on that thing until last week when I recorded a brew day with my buddy Josh over at Cartridge. And I finally was like, all right, I need to use this thing. I need to figure this out. I bought some new mics. I need to use this stuff. And if it's screwed up, I'll learn from it and just get over it. But yeah.
Is that what you use for doing your brew day stuff? Just GoPros?
So everything up until this last one was done on what I like to call Purple Rain here, the old iPhone. This is sometimes people say, hey, Adam, how come your phone case is purple? And it's like, well, sometimes when you're a father of 6, and the purple case is $10 cheaper than the black one, you get the purple one.
Yeah, you get the purple one. Always.
So yeah, so super majority of my stuff is, I mean, really super majority of my stuff was recorded on that. Before, that's an iPhone 13. Before that, probably half of my brew day videos are on an iPhone 8. And I've got a couple of mics that work for that. One was a little bit like a little bit jankier, but I have one that's a little bit better specifically for my iPhone. But yeah, I mean, because I've started this whole thing, like I've tried to go like as lean as possible. The reason I ended up getting the GoPro was when I decided to go full-time on the content side, I figured, one, I should probably have something else, at least as a backup, right? So if I go and something goes wrong with, because I've had that before where I went to a place and my phone just died like an hour into the brew day, and then I was screwed from a recording standpoint. So just to have, something else,
well, phones are getting so good too. I mean, phones
crazy.
I was hearing something the other day, how good iPhones are getting is taking over like the wedding industry of how good a photo can get. When you go to a wedding, they promise you 150 usable photos is like the deal.
Sure. Yeah.
And someone shot it with an iPhone and they got more than 150 usable photos. I was like, damn.
Well, and there's even courses. I need to dip in on that because there's people that can take amazing photographs with a phone. Which I don't know. Like most of my pictures come from about at arm's length of my face doing something stupid. So yeah, anytime I want to take a picture of something beautiful, it's always garbage. But,
my guy at Full Frame Brewing Company, Jacob. Have you heard of Full Frame? They're out of Denver.
Okay, yeah.
It's they got a turnkey full frame, obviously into the photo realm thing. I was like, hey, grab a picture of me on this patio. And he adjusted all my settings on my phone that I didn't even know existed. He goes, dude, what are you doing here? And then he showed me his phone, and I was like, oh, wow, like this is incredible, dude.
Yeah, I'll tell you what I'm doing. I'm taking terrible pictures. That's what I'm doing.
Right.
So yeah. Well, anyways, man, give us a little background on your path into the industry.
Sure. So, I mean, I don't know if I'd call it unorthodox. I guess it's just I didn't take the home brewer route. So I brewed a professional batch before. Honestly, I think I brewed my first professional batch before I even enjoyed craft beer. Which I don't know how common that is, but went to college in a town in Western Kansas called Fort Hays, super party school. At the time, I don't know, when would you call craft beer boom?
I mean, I think so. They had kind of that thing in the 90s when everybody had the brew pub that was blonde ale, blonde ale, wheat, stout, brown, amber. Like that was that lineup. And then in my mind,
what would you call 2012?
I think it was really starting to pop back off. And so that's what I'm going to say. I feel like in my area in Michigan, I think the 2010s, the early 2010s was when people started opening places because they thought that there was money in the industry. So it was kind of this shift. It was kind of this shift from where it was like home brewers, passion driven about making beer, opening their own spots and learning, holy crap, I'm running a restaurant at that point. I'm not just making beer, and then making it work. And then more business people minded saying, hey, listen, well, let's add a brewery onto this restaurant, or let's start a brewery. So that was kind of that next big boom, right?
That's exactly kind of the place I was at. This guy, home brewer, winning awards on all of his homebrew stuff through all those competitions. And he was going to put just a little brew pub, no food, or just a little pub, no food. But then a rich business guy in town was like, hey, dude, how about we partner up on this thing? We go downtown. I'll buy you whatever system you want. I'll do the food. You do the beer. We'll leave each other alone. So he started out in like 2005, immediately won like 3 JBF medals his first year open. Nice. And granted, it was 2005. There was like 14 entries in the wheat beer category, but which it seems like we're getting back to there too. I mean, it was pretty low.
Numbers were down for sure.
Yeah. So he opened that up. He had two guys come on. And then I think after 4 years of it, they were tired of working for someone. I was working as a host at the restaurant just through college. And these two guys quit and opened up their own brewery. And then he just wanted to mold a 21, 22-year-old kid to brew the beer how he wanted it brewed. I mean, cleanliness was just like, he was just a freak about it. And I'm so glad I learned from him, because it's just what he beat into my head. Like, cleanliness, everything. Like, we couldn't wear shoes in the brewery. We had to like change boots, almost like a NASA station, like one of those like what do I try to like pressure relief rooms or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, so there was like a door that separate where you change your shoes at, and you got to put on the boots. Things like that. And so he taught me how to clean everything before he taught me anything about brewing. Which, looking back, is, that's amazing. Still instilled in me today. But basically, like we were chatting a little bit off. I was going to be a social worker, so I was going to graduate on that Saturday. Literally that Saturday, I was going to graduate. I was going to work in a law office to be a part of basically taking away kids from terrible parents, or to be like the caseworker for them. Sure. And that Tuesday they approached me like, "Hey, would you be interested in to learn how to brew beer?" I was like, "Well, shit, I do like beer." But I mean, I was still drinking Keystone Light and Fireball at the time, man. But it sounded interesting to me. So I called my dad, who's worked the same job from like 14 to retirement at 59, building airplanes. And I fully thought he was just going to tell me to piss off. Like, I didn't think he was going to even entertain it. But I told them, I go, give me a day. Let me think about it, because this is a crazy opportunity. Because at the time, Gella's Diner and LB, I don't know if you ever heard of them, but I mean, they were on a roll, like super respected. It'd have been a good opportunity. And I called my dad, and he immediately was like, sounds cool. I'd do it. If I could go back in time, I'd change jobs. And I go, wow. Okay. Yeah, let's go. Let's do it. Let's learn how to brew beer. And he just kind of molded me into being a clean brewer. Not really much like in depth on the nerdy stuff, but looking back, like, that's how I would train someone. I would.
Those are your fundamentals, man. Yeah. Absolutely.
I'd teach them the same way he taught me, to make sure everything's clean, and this is the right way to do it. Yes. Before you start really talking about like water profiles and things like that, of how about we focus on brewing the clean beer by this recipe, and then one day, you can get your own recipe and you can do it the clean way. But we're going to learn from almost backwards to forwards, if that makes sense. Like, keep everything clean.
Man. Yeah. I think that's a perfect, in my mind, that's the perfect way to train. And that's the direction I like to go with people, because you do have to get those fundamentals in their head. Understanding the cleaning process, how you keep things clean, how you keep things sanitized. And then, as you're doing those things, like when you're filling kegs off of a packaging tank, what's going on physically there is it's, in some ways the reverse of what's going on when you fill a tank, right? You're adding liquid under pressure, relieving that pressure slightly so that beer can move in a gentle fashion. There's all these things that you can build in for actually higher level processes. And so, I think that's the best way to build it, because the problem is if you swing in and you're on the brew deck and you never have had those fundamentals that you learn in the cellar and on the cleaning side of things, it can be a problem.
Yeah. And if I had to pinpoint, like, I don't know how you feel about this, but I feel like quality of craft beer in America is going downhill. Like, do you feel that way? Or even,
I'll be honest. So, like, listen, I haven't drank beer in 2 years. I have.
Really? Okay. I know
Yeah,
that.
something interesting about me. So, which also makes Craft Brewers Conference a little bit more interesting because I'm essentially just waiting until like I can get a cocktail after we leave whatever
Sure.
session is going on. But anyways, but no. So like I've developed some pretty hardcore food sensitivity / allergies. So it's been a minute. So I wouldn't be able to I wouldn't be able to weigh in on that necessarily.
Okay.
But you feel like with the stuff that you're seeing
Oh,
that
well,
there's
I
some slipping on
feel,
that front.
yeah, I mean, I feel like I travel a lot, and
Mhm.
I just feel like I try some of these breweries, and some of the beer that I'm tasting, obviously I'll classically go for the lager or an IPA.
Mhm.
If I go to a new brewery and you got one of those on tap, like I'm immediately going to try that because I'm going to judge basically what I order next off of did I like the IPA or did I like the
Yes.
lager.
Yes.
Um, and man, there's just been some stinkers recently, and I just don't understand it because it's never been easier to brew clean or to brew good beer. I mean,
Yeah.
it just hasn't, in my opinion. Like with all the technology and stuff, do you agree?
Uh-huh.
So
Well,
yeah,
and
like
I think that technology, information. So let me bounce something off you. And we kind of have this on the list for later, but we can tap into this a little bit now too. So do you think that there's a possibility that those those flaws are showing because we're kind of experiencing this renaissance of the light lager, right? It seems like more and more places are willing to put on an adjunct lager, their version of a Helles. Do you think maybe it's because we are seeing some really delicate beers going on to menus and there's nothing to hide behind with that? Or do you just think it's something else?
it could, so in my opinion, it could be a number of things because I really was thinking about this a lot because cleanliness could be a main issue, but this also might tie into my next theory. A lot of brewers are also the owners. So
Okay.
maybe they're starting to see, oh, I could save money by doing this. I could save money by not using the best hops. I could save money by not, or I need this beer on tap. So they're rushing the beers.
Sure.
Um, could be a little bit of those things, but I mean, I've never sent a beer back in my entire life,
Yeah.
and I guess I technically never have sent it back, but I went to like 3 breweries over the course of my like 10-day trip where I left the beer on the table or at least went in the bathroom and poured it out.
For
I
sure.
mean, light lagers too.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So I mean, yeah, I don't really know what to really attribute. I have some theories, but just piling onto that cleanliness thing. Like the least
Sure.
you could do in the industry is have clean equipment.
Yeah. Yeah. It is interesting to me that, well, and I think a lot of it too comes down to, who trained you. You know what I mean? Because
Right.
sometimes we can slap, okay, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years in the industry. But if your fundamentals weren't there in the first place, and depending
Yeah.
on the breweries where you've worked, sometimes that skill set isn't formed in the first place. You know what I mean? And you did bring up another interesting angle on it, which, with financial times being what they are, yeah, I've seen people that are buying base malts that, in my mind, are not going to get them the
Yeah.
best beer in that glass. And I think sometimes people think they can associate, okay, this is our light lager. We can throw anything in there. I'm not saying like, so I always joke around. I really love Barca Pills from Wireman, right? I don't think that beer has to be built off of that, but you can't just be throwing in the cheapest, potentially worst possible malt that you can get your hands on
Right.
that beer because it's going to show, and it's not going to work. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think quality ingredients is what's going to make the best lager.
Mhm.
But like you said earlier, you're making a super light lager if that's the main I don't know where it sits. I didn't go. Did you go to like the State of the Union address at CBC?
Yeah,
Or like
I saw old Bart. I did. Yeah, again, because my drinking options are a bit narrow. I had some pretty early nights for me.
Well, I just didn't
Also,
know if did he say like what the industry leading beer style or anything, or is that even
he
what he
didn't dip
addressed?
into the stylistic side. I would recommend to anybody out there. I know he's doing some podcasts. I'm actually trying to be able to talk to him, but see if I can chat with him about it, because his kind of the state of craft beer talk I thought was really good. I think one of the things that he's done well is I think he's a numbers guy that actually has the ability to speak as well. And I'm not trying to like be rude or anything like that, but sometimes those two skill sets don't overlap. And
well, that's CBC in a nutshell, man.
Yeah.
I stopped going to the seminars a long time ago because you're right; those two skills do not coincide with most people. Someone who can really articulate it, maybe not necessarily as a good speaker, or someone who is a good speaker maybe can't be as like you listen to Bart up there, like wow, he executed that perfectly.
Yeah, he knows what he's doing, and what I liked about his state of craft beer talk was he talked about a lot of data. He talked about headlines that we've heard that he was saying, statistically, this is being misrepresented. But then he pointed to other things that said this is a problem. And one of the things that I like about him is I don't find him to be like reactionary. And I also don't find him to be somebody that sugarcoats, because I think that is at least for me, when you try to dress something, when you try to dress up a pig and put lipstick on it and whatnot, I still know it's a pig, dude. So I appreciate the fact that he's pretty straightforward with things. But no, he didn't talk. He didn't really talk stylistically. He did dive into big number trends. And I thought it was really worthwhile. So if any of you have the opportunity to get a chance to hear that talk that he did, it's really good. I don't know. I'm jumping. This has
sorry. Well, I was circled back to where I didn't know if he said like the light lager is what's a rising style, as that's what people can come to their tap room and drink 5, 6, 7, 8, or eight's a lot, but like if that's a style that is rising in the industry from whatever numbers he sees or whatever they're getting reported, that if that's becoming such a popular style that the people, the brew pubs or what breweries are rushing these beers out because they got to have a new one on tap for Friday before the weekend, but it's not ready.
Let me bounce something off you. So I think you should always be clear when you are branding a beer. I am not a fan of saying that something is a lager if it's not fermented with lager yeast. So let me bounce something off you. I think so. For argument's sake, when I was at Cartridge, we made a light beer. It was 2-row and rice. Fermented cold, standard lager process. If I took that same beer and with the appropriate pitch of Chico fermented cool, what percentage of people, and I'm not saying I would call it a lager, you could call it, Wichita light, whatever, right? What percentage of customer is going to know the difference between that lager beer that you've made and that cool fermented Chico beer? Just your take.
Probably not many. Maybe it depends on the market. I still feel like Wichita, we're still undereducated in sense of like we only have like 8 breweries with 750,000 people in our suburb. And we have a really good blonde ale on at our pubs, but everyone's like, oh, I really like that Thunder Blonde lager. It's like, well, it's not a lager, but that's what it is. It's just a super light, clean, beer. I guess
I
what
would
was the
almost
question
rather
of, like,
some people, well, in my mind, I would almost rather, and again, you have to do it right with that as well. But when you get into that issue of, okay, somebody has, their adjunct lager on and they're rushing it and they're probably putting out
right,
a worse product because of it. Sometimes I feel as if, and again, being transparent with the fact that, it's your light beer, whatever, don't call it a lager. But sometimes I feel like people would just be better off fermenting it with Chico Cool, and actually
yeah,
getting through all of your stages. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
call it something light, or like call it like
Sure.
day drinker, or like something
Yes.
light. I mean, you don't have to call it a lager, call it whatever light.
Sure.
Um,
And I'm
that
not
wouldn't be
suggesting do
offensive to
this with
me.
your Pilsner. You know what I mean? That's not what
No.
I'm saying here. I'm not, because I really, I'm a very firm believer in the fact that I think that there are beers that we make to pay the bills, and then there are beers that we make that feed our passion, right? And sometimes
Yep.
those things overlap a little bit, and sometimes it doesn't, you know? So yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I was just interested to
Yeah,
see what
no,
you thought
I
about
was
that.
actually going to touch on that when we started to kind of talk about lagers. If you're going to do a lager, just do it right, because you're
Yeah.
exactly right. Like, if you do it wrong, you're better off just doing a blonde ale, doing this light, anything. Just a super clean light ale is going to taste
Sure.
better than a rushed lager. I mean,
Absolutely. Absolutely. So speaking of lager, let's just dip in on some of this stuff. So,
sure.
what are first of all, what are your, and they can be beers. You can give me the lager that Wichita makes, that is your favorite, and then just kind of like, what are your gold standard lagers that are out there?
Sure. Well, my favorite lager, we actually just did. I don't know how long you've been following me, but I've been saying "Another Day Not Promised" for like 10 years now. It's just kind of my everyday thing.
Sure.
So I put that on just a German Pils, super clean, light Saaz, Tettnanger, Spalter, the classic noble hops, and it
Yeah.
turned out extremely amazing. I've never actually really cared what judges think about anything, but I'm extremely curious to what if it advanced or anything at World Beer, because we entered it at World Beer Cup this year,
Sure.
and I've
Sure.
never been happier with a lager that we've brewed. And
Yeah.
I like gave it to some people in the last. It's been out for like 2 months, and I've given it to people. They're like, "Oh, what's your biggest critique of this or whatever?" And they think I'm crazy, but I'm like, I think this is the best lager I've ever done. I have no problems with it at all. And they're like,
Yeah.
wow, what's that like to not be critical of yourself? I was like, dude, I'm just really happy with this beer. Like, come on, guys, be happy.
Well, yeah, there's nothing wrong with that, right? And I always like framing it through like, hey, let me share something with you that I'm excited about, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because I think we should be able to do that without, like kind of coming off douchey. You know what I mean? Because there's
Right.
different brewers can handle that in different ways. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I mean,
So
the brewing industry is turning into, or not even turning into, it's so diverse with like attitudes too, not just people. And like, I have noticed that people will take offense to certain things that maybe like 10 years ago was just like, hey, dude, I'm just trying to tell you that I don't like dry yeast, or you know what I
yeah,
mean? It's like
yeah, yeah,
my opinion.
yeah,
So
yeah.
and people like take that as like you just stabbed them in their heart. It's like, no, dude, I personally don't like dry yeast. Like, I don't know what, I'm not telling you you're wrong.
Well, and it's one of those things too. So like, even just like talking about yeast strains, the reality is, for me, like, I have my preferences. But sometimes those things can be based off of, they could be based off of whatever. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know how many of us that are like actively in the field making beer know it all. You know what I mean?
No,
There's a hell of a lot of stuff to know.
I
You know what I
mean,
mean?
you talk to some people, they think they know it all. And then it kind of goes back to a little bit what I was saying earlier. It is wild to me. And I was talking to, oh man, I can't remember the people I was talking to, what brewery they were from, but they said who's the pizza port brewmaster? Do you know by chance?
Oh, what's the name? Is that no Tommy Arthur? No.
Actually, I don't even know why I asked, because even if you said it, I wouldn't be able to know.
Okay.
But basically, they were saying like the dude who was the brewmaster, who's created all these crazy recipes and whatever, and he's made the best beer. They say you'll go to his brewery for collab day, and like he'll be asking you questions about like his brewery. It's like, dude, there's like, that's amazing. And they're like, he's like, he might be one of the gold standard brewers. But he's asking questions about his own brewery to you.
Yes. Yeah.
Like,
and that's where it's at, man. You know, my happiness with my career increased dramatically when I started, because my whole goal was, you know, I want to hit the bullseye. I want to make perfect beers. I want to win all the medals. And when I downshifted into this idea of, how about what I do is just aim? How about I'm always aiming for the bullseye, knowing I may never hit it, but it's a path, right? So you always stay hungry. You always stay growing, you know?
Yeah.
I became a much happier person when I went through that shift, right? Because I used to tell myself, I used to joke with some of my other brewer buddies, and at that point you could put like 5 beers in GABF or whatever. And we would say, so if we put 5 beers in this competition and got 5 golds, how long would we be happy? And we were like, okay. Right. And then I would have this thought creep in of, well, if I don't do it again, it was a fluke the first time, right? Which is a really gross thing to think, but that's what I can do to myself. You know what I mean? So yeah, I always think it's interesting when I think some of the smartest, best, most successful people have that trait where they're saying they want to know what you're doing. They want to know what you're tasting in their beer, right? So yeah, no, I love that. I love that.
I think that's what the industry should be, I think that's what Craft Brewers Conference should be shifted to, in my opinion. Instead of these seminars, take each ballroom and put a topic on it from 10 to 11 o'clock. Have a couple people roaming for maybe some clarity, but only talk about that topic at this, like in this ballroom. Don't talk about how the Cowboys are going to win the Super Bowl. Talk about, let's talk about.
First of all, just not to derail this, but we haven't even touched on NFL stuff yet. But anyways, go.
But no, like just talk about that. Talk about, your souring process. What has worked for you? What has not worked for you? Like just talk to some random people, and they're like, and then they could even bonus onto that. Like, well, there's people in our town who tried this. They brew on this system. They didn't like this because of that. And I truly believe you will get more information and education out of just chatting with people in that setting than any seminar. That's
interesting. I didn't do. I didn't do I had a little bit different focus. Most of my time was in the trade room. And so like at this point, because I know, there are definitely some talks that I'm going to be interested to go back and check out. There was, I walked past one, they had some folks up there doing a talk on Czech lager. And yeah, I'm assuming there's some great info in there. But yeah, I think it's interesting kind of at this stage and where I'm at with what I'm doing. The trade show was very good for me. It gave me an opportunity to touch base with people. I think sometimes you can kind of look down on that concept of, networking or whatever. But there is something to, being able to connect with new people, connect with your old people. And those relationships are really the thing that really helps to create some stability for you in this industry, which is kind of inherently unstable.
Well, what's the trade show open for 7 hours? If you're going there for a specific reason, if you got lager questions, if you got hop questions, if you got any questions like that, just go to the suppliers. Go to any of these booth vendors that, you might be curious about something. and you'll learn that quicker than you will sitting in a 45-minute PowerPoint. I'm not saying they shouldn't put out the PowerPoints, but I think they should like pre-make them at the BA or something and then release them.
Okay.
And then give everyone either the trade show floor or these individual rooms for like more specific topics for, whether it's, hop creep, pick any topic, but it's more of a mingle session and, drink some beers that, if it's about hops, have some beers in there that are featuring certain hops. And I genuinely, like I said, you'll get more education out of that than people sitting in there with their notebooks trying to make sense of someone who's terrified to speak on stage, seemingly.
Sure. Yeah. And I do. One of the things that I love about, because, I came from the home brewing side. I came up listening to a podcast where, it was Vinny Chilurzo, it was Matt Brindelson, it was all these incredible pro brewers and amazing home brewers that were just telling you everything. I love that, like, open book, I'll share it with you concept, right? And one of the things that I like about what you're talking about is there is that notion of, collaboration and people talking about what they're doing and what's working, absolutely.
Yeah. And I think the best example of, I don't know if you ever come across it, but I've actually come across it twice in Wichita, and the brewery is actually no longer open. But I was like, hey, we should hit a collab sometime. We were just drinking beers. And he literally shut it down. He goes, I don't want anybody stealing anything that I've already taught this town. And we were like, we literally thought this dude was like joking, but he's not sarcastic like that. We were like, you gotta be kidding me, dude. Like no offense, but there's not one thing you could show me in brewing that would just make my brain just explode in, oh my God, I never thought of that. That's what makes our industry so great, is like you're supposed to talk to each other. But the best example is that resilience beer, or was that the wildfire one?
Yeah.
They gave every single person the exact same ingredients, and I had 8 different ones of those. They all tasted different.
Yeah.
So it's not, no one's stealing. You could, I bet Russian River could give you the recipe for Pliny. I bet you're not even coming close to it tasting the same. In my opinion.
The other thing is too, like, in my mind, like, if somebody's willing to, like, let me see the recipe for a beer that's in front of me, the reason that I'm interested in that is because I want to drink that beer, do sensory on that beer, look at that recipe, talk to that brewer about process, and seeing how all those inputs add up to that beer. Like, to me, recipe creation, beer creation, balance creation is all about understanding these inputs. Even if I think the lager that's sitting in front of me that you brewed is the most amazing thing on earth, the reason I want to talk to you about it and talk about the recipe and the process, it isn't because I don't want to mimic it. I want to learn. Like, I want to add tools to the tool belt. You know what I mean? Because it's always been my thing where it's like, you want to make my beer? I mean, how about, like, just, like, learn what you can from what I'm doing and then do you. You know what I mean? Because I feel like if you walk into a brewery and you taste a lineup of beers, and kind of talking in a brew pub setting where maybe it's just one person really, but you should be able to kind of understand the voice of the brewer, right? Like, you should understand the way that brewer likes to construct beers by tasting through that lineup in some way, shape, or form. You know what I mean? So I don't know. That's something that I get excited about.
Well, I think at the end of the day, I think everyone should want everyone to make world-class beer. Like, there's been times when there's been breweries around town that didn't start out so hot, and we all kind of came together and was like, hey guys, like, what are you doing? Found out they were CIPing with cold caustic. And we're like, well, you can't do that. Like, it almost immediately solved the problem.
Yes.
And it was that simple, like, coming together, and now Wichita is a better place for it. And
Yes.
I think every community should be like that. But it is kind of wild. I don't know how tight Cincinnati is, but I talked to a lot of brewing communities, and they're not, and some are just too big to be tight like that. But I mean, we have 8 breweries. We all hang out together. We all vibe together. And we all make different stuff too. Like we're all pretty much different breweries. And I think that's what makes Wichita so great.
That's very cool. Yeah, when I was in Michigan, it's a little bit of an older craft beer scene there. They have some big kind of regional places, obviously Bell's, Founders, and some different spots like that. And so the scene is a little bit older. The craft beer scene is a little bit older than here in Cincinnati, even though obviously Cincinnati has its brewing roots. But I feel like as a result of the growth of that industry, I do think it's sometimes difficult to maintain that camaraderie. When I was in the Michigan beer scene, I was close to Grand Rapids, and they had a little, the Grand Rapids Brewers Guild, and they did collaborative stuff all the time, monthly meetings, people getting together for beers, helping each other out, sharing. And I think that's part and parcel of, maybe having some deeper roots and some people that have the right mindset, there to welcome people in and to draw people in and to help them. But, as we mentioned before, I do believe that there's been a little bit more of an investment type look at our industry. And I think that can change. It can change outlooks for folks.
You think people look at it as competition more now?
Yes, I think so. It's Cody. I think it's a combination of competition and ego, and I can speak from personal, right? Yeah, this is me.
Okay.
All right. Well, and because listen, I'm not too proud to say, like, listen, it's better than it used to be. I thankfully, after 30 years of adulthood, I've learned a couple things. I always say that I don't necessarily think I learned them meritoriously. I learned them through getting my teeth kicked in a little bit. You know what I mean? But life wears down some of those sharp corners over the years. You know what I mean? And I'd be lying if I was saying that. I think a big part of the reason that I left teaching to become a professional brewer is because I wanted recognition as a good brewer. I wanted to win medals, and I wanted people to think I was cool. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
The cool side thing has gotten, oh man, I've kind of had a hot take on this for a long time.
Go for it.
Like the people who, I mean, everyone wants to be Treehouse. Everyone wants to be Tripping Animals. Everyone wants to be, oh fuck, what's the New York one? Other Half.
Yeah.
And then when they meet people that are from there, they just completely change who they are, and they're just like geeked out. Like one of my homies, he just washed kegs at a Russian River, and like I hung out with him, and people were like, "Oh my god, how could we get a collab?" I was like, dude. He doesn't decide those things, and no offense, but Russian River is not going to do a collab with your 3 Barrel Brew Pub in fucking Kansas City. Yeah, the whole, I don't know, I guess you'd call it like Cool Kids Club or whatever.
Yeah.
My take has always been, I can either drink a beer with you or I can't. Yeah. And if I can't drink a beer with you, good riddance. I mean, at the end of the day, we all make sugar water. Like, it doesn't matter if you're doing it for Treehouse or you're doing it for the 1 barrel system in St. Louis or whatever. And that I think that's where the ego thing comes into play, or like, oh man, I wish I could think of his name, but someone was saying, the whole don't meet your heroes thing. And it was the owner of a pretty big brewery. They go, it was the most disappointing day of my life. I went to say hi to him, and he just completely ignored me. I was like, damn, man, that's unfortunate. But if a brewery owner is on the top of your list of people you've ever wanted to meet on earth, like, okay.
For sure. Yeah, that's funny. Well, no, and I do think, though, like, again, I think hopefully life and experience ends up kind of showing you the way on that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
For me, increasingly what became my passion was obviously making the beer, getting better there, but also training and mentoring. You know what I mean? Like, because I always thought, so Simon Sinek did a TED talk called like, "What's your why?" or something like that. And he was saying, what's the thing that makes you leave when you're leaving work and you say to yourself, I would have done that for free? And in my mind, it was when I was working at Cartridge and I had Josh and Maggie working with me in the brewery, two amazing kids. And I'm saying they're kids. They're in their 20s, but I'm older than them. They're almost my kids' age. They're almost my kids' age.
Right.
So it's no disrespect, but it was, they wanted to learn. I wanted to learn. They wanted to grow, like good natured, like me helping them develop post-college, post-education, right? And develop in a field. That was the best thing, man. That was the thing that would send me home on fire, and so yeah, I think it's best ultimately to channel those things in a different direction, right? Rather than being so focused on yourself and the pressure you put on yourself, take that energy and put it on how you can be lifting up other people. You know what I mean?
For sure.
So, yeah.
I get so like people ask me all the time, like, if I could only get paid to either brew or do like the social media side and podcast side, honestly, I'd probably just go with the social media podcast side. I think it's so much more fun to connect with people and that side of it to where, it possibly is uplifting people, which is, I guess we could bridge into the whole mental health side of things.
Sure.
The whole like less hate, more lager kind of just started, obviously podcast, just messing around, talking a little trash, having fun, laughing, all the great things about brewing. But the more I get into it, like I want to create a mental health, either like charity or foundation or organization. I still am like talking to so many people. I just don't know how to do it because every brewer needs their own different help of mental health. Like could be therapy, it could be just being able to go to CBC for the week. Maybe that's going to boost their mental health enough for the year to make them, the whole brewing worth it, I guess.
Sure.
So I'm like talking to a lot of people trying to figure out ways to bridge that avenue of like, because I'll be honest, the Brewers Association isn't doing anything for anyone's mental health. Like you would think that would be the one thing that they'd focus on, right? Or the organization that would focus on it the most. I don't know if they don't see it as being a problem at all, but it doesn't seem like anyone's really like taking the reins on it. And I figured I might as well. I got to figure out a way to help everyone. And I know that's impossible, but I guess like do my best.
Yeah, man. And first of all, Less Hate, More Lager. Great tag name. Great name for a podcast. Very, very good. I like it. I liked it the first time I saw it. I thought that's very cool.
Do you know what it used to be called?
What's that?
Do you know my first name, what it was called?
No.
It's called the Masturbation Podcast, but I couldn't get any guests. So
you don't say.
Yeah. Yeah. So
yeah, I can see that. I can see.
So had to change the name on that one.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, man. But I think a lot of times some of the things that can be most successful can be some of those grassroots things. And there is such a unique power behind the online space. And social media can be a funny thing. Obviously, it can have its negative effects, but it can be a way to give you access to a wide range of people and do some good things as well, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I do think that's interesting. What do you see as like when you talk about mental health in the industry? What do you see are like the top few issues that you see?
So this is just my opinion, but I talked to brewers and it seems like everybody's story is a little bit different. Everyone's reason for their mental health declining is a little different. Some people can't handle the that it's more or less a repetitive job. Oh my gosh, I go in every day, I mash in, I do the same thing every day. And some people don't like that. But then there's other people who thrive on that. Like I personally love it. I brew beer every day. It's the same job every day. I got no problem with it. But there's some people that just kind of gets to them. And whenever I talk to them about it, I kind of just say, more or less, what job isn't roughly the same thing every day? I mean, even a crazy job like being a cop, like pretty much same thing. You're pulling people over, you're patrolling, something crazy is going to happen here or there, but for the most part, it's the same job every day.
Sure.
That I think the pay probably is really big on the mind. People trying to balance the passion they have for brewing versus trying to justify it for the wages, which we all know are not like super great. Depending on what you do and this and that. But there's that. And then it can spiral into the whole, I guess you said you don't drink, but when you were in the brewing industry, do you notice most people drink beer every day?
Oh yeah.
I mean, I don't, but I'd make up for it on the weekends for sure. But like most brewers I know, I mean, they're having 6-7 beers every day.
Yeah.
Like on work, and then I mean that's not going to help if you're already not in a great spot mentally either. But then on the flip side, there's other people who absolutely love it. If they justify those 6 free beers plus the case a week they take home as, well, my pay's not great, but I get free beer. So that's like the whole juggling act I'm trying to figure out for how I can help in mental health, because I talk to so many brewers and just everyone's different. So it's really gonna be hard to like dial it all in, but I mean, I'm not going to stop trying to figure out something. So yeah, I mean, we'll get there like slowly at a time. It's just going to keep talking to people, more and more people, and figuring it out.
Yeah. And as you mentioned, I do think there's a certain level of honesty that's required, right? As to, what are your primary motivations for being here? Because like you said, the pay is not great in most situations. And I also think that there's this, sometimes people don't like this, but sometimes there's this notion that people think that everybody is getting rich but them. And I think case in point with 500 breweries closing in the last year, not everybody is getting rich. I'm not saying that there's not situations where there is ownership that takes advantage of people, that does not pay people fairly, this, that, or the other thing. I'm not saying that. But the reality is, we do make a choice to be in this industry. And one time, probably something that I've said on a podcast that has, it was easily the number one thing that has received the most straight up anger from people was when I suggested that if you're not happy and you can't pay your bills, explore doing something else.
Yeah.
Like, well, I mean, why would I wouldn't wish that on anybody. If you're miserable and can't pay the bills, please do something else.
Because, I mean, I tell people all the time, make the change. Like, and that goes with anything. You unhappy in your job, there's other people hiring. I mean, you unhappy in your relationship, there's other women and men out there. Just make the change if you're unhappy. But here's like a good story of what you're saying about everyone thinks just all the brew owners getting rich. We had a guy work for us. He would always kind of complain about like how bad the business was ran. And, we didn't have the greatest management there for a while. And he would always complain about this and that. about how they're getting rich. And I kept telling him, I was like, dude, I promise you they are not getting rich. But I'm sorry, can you hear that? They're sorry. People working on my roof for the first time ever.
No, you're fine. It's no big deal. It's no big deal.
But anyways, so he quit because he was going to start his own brewery, right? And I kept reminding him, I kept telling him, hey man, you see all this beer hit the semi truck for distro, and that's fine. And you see these big checks roll in. Are you seeing us paying the bill for that semi truck of grain that came in? Do you see the check going out for the cans we have to come in? The electric bill, like the wage, labor, all that stuff. Like you're not seeing that. So like he went to go start his own brewery and he quit after 6 months of planning because he realized how much money went into it.
Yes. Yeah. And again, there's bad owners out there. There's bad bosses. We're not saying that, but I don't think it is something. I do think it's the pill that you have to swallow on some level of saying, regardless of how I perform, there's probably a ceiling on what I can be achieving financially in this industry. And there's nothing wrong with saying it doesn't work for you. That's fine. But I think that's interesting.
Well, you can also, I say this, like, adjust your lifestyle to your income. Some of the happiest people I know are living paycheck to paycheck, but they get that case of beer that they can take down to the river every weekend, and they're eating grilled cheeses at home. But they're living, man. They're happier than some of my friends making 200, 300K a year in their office sales job and less stress. Yeah. It's like, well, what do you really want in life? Yeah. Once you figure that out, like if the goal is just to be happy, become a brewer, get some free beer, get your mental state right, and get some free beer and go fishing.
Sure. Absolutely. Well, let me jump back into a couple of lager questions for you because I know lager is something you're passionate about. So just some high level stuff. What are some of your preferred yeast strains for lager production?
So we've honestly only ever went with Omega yeast, just the straight up pills. We did. Way back in the day, we did kind of I call it a BS lager because we didn't give it it was for a baseball team, a AAA baseball team. So we were going through so much of that we were getting it out of there in like 4 weeks, which is not ideal time. But but to answer your question, we've only ever went with Omega, just the straight up pills or lager one. And that's what's in that Another Day Not Promised Pilsner that I'm super happy with. So I haven't really dug extremely deep into the yeast side of things. I keep telling myself I'm going to do that, but then at the end of the day, I just like, I'm just going to trust that Omega knows.
Absolutely. What do you? How do you like to treat that yeast from kind of a temperature range and things like that?
So it's not the most ideal, but our heat exchanger and everything can only really knock out at about like 60, set it to 50, what do we got? 56, raise it to 58, and then slowly drop it. Basically 8 weeks lagering time is the most ideal. Slowly crash it. A good phrase that was told to me, which I kind of go back and forth of whether it makes sense. He goes, you wouldn't crash your car fast. Why would you crash your yeast fast? But then I also am like, well, you don't want to crash your car slow either.
From an analogy standpoint, I'm with you. But
I was like, I get what you're saying. Sure. But just do the slow crash. And it kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier. Like, if you're going to do a lager, there's no reason not to do it the right way. Take the time, take the temperatures, whatever going to work for you, go slow with it, let it develop, let it get scrubbed for all the best flavors, everything that a lager is supposed to do. Like the Germans been doing this for how long? Like,
Yeah.
why would you not trust some of the same processes that they do?
Sure.
I joke every CBC about that'd be funny if the Americans somehow swept the German Pilsner category.
Sure.
But that never happens. And
they know what they're doing. They know what they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. So why not take all their policies and all the things that, you can talk to them. Shit, it's all online, like we were talking about.
Sure.
Take the time to do it right. Don't ferment at ale temperatures. I know breweries that they don't lager their Oktoberfest.
Yeah.
And it's not good.
Yeah.
And I guess basically the main thing would be if you're gonna do a lager, take the time.
Yes.
Do it. It's gonna taste better. Bump it up a couple weeks so it's ready if you need to have it by a distro date.
Sure.
Do that, and then first and foremost, have the cleanest possible tanks, lines, everything. If you want a world-class lager, we were talking a little bit earlier about the quality ingredients. I do think, Wireman, best grain there is for a lager. I know there's a lot of people who would disagree with that, but you use the best grain, have the cleanest equipment, and take your time.
Yeah.
There's no reason why you can't brew a world-class lager. You just got to give it the time to lager, which is German for, I'm not sure, something like wait.
Store?
Or store.
Store? Yeah. I think so.
Yeah, store.
So, how is that strain for sulfur production? Is sulfur ever an issue for you guys?
We've never had a problem, and this sounds super
Beautiful.
crazy, but we've actually never had a beer that was detected off flavor, anything like that, which is super weird. That I kind of go back to, I'm not the smartest brewer there is. We're not the smartest team, but how we do things and our cleanliness and everything, it's, you talk to brewers, we've never had to dump a batch of beer that wasn't how we had to do kettle sours was just an absolute nightmare. And 2 of them went bad in the process, but that was just in the souring process. But other than that, we've never had a off flavor. We even have a lab that we get a Wichita State intern. I don't know if other places do this, but their lab hours, they'll come test our yeast, test our, swab our heat exchanger. They never had a problem. Never detected off flavors, never.
Nice.
But the sulfur bomb, that's what I've been detecting a lot of. Without us telling you some of these breweries I've had recently, it's just unbearable. And I guess I'm not that nerdy enough to.
No, that's you're good. You're good. Are you guys? Do you guys use nutrient on the hot side?
Man, I wish I could think of the name. We've been going through so many different things to, World Flock tablets and oh man, I wish I could think of all the names of these because they basically do the same thing. But we just been trying because there's new companies. I don't know if you saw this at CBC, but all these companies that are just cutting throat prices to try to get your business on their version of whatever it is. Yeah. So there's people who will send us free samples of, their version of World Flock tablets or their version of Clarex, anything like that. So
do you guys use Clarex?
Yeah. Well, we use it on most beers. Obviously, we don't worry about it on our oatmeal cream stout, which is crazy enough our number one seller.
Really?
Yeah, it's a beer called Buffalo Sweat, if you ever remember that.
No kidding.
Yeah,
that's interesting. I just wouldn't have figured. I just wouldn't have figured oatmeal stout.
Well, it's a very unique beer. Milk stout, super light, 5.5%. Yeah, it's super unique.
Are you an oatmeal stout guy personally? Do you like oatmeal stout?
I don't think I've drank a pint of anything that wasn't an IPA or a lager in the last like 5 years.
Gotta
Well,
stay
no,
true to the
that's not
brand,
true.
man.
That's
Stay
not
true to the brand.
true. It's been like a blonde ale or a golden ale, cream ale, things like that. But no, I don't think I've drank a pint of stout in like 5 or more years.
Sure.
Same with a sour, anything like that, man. It's just been lagers and IPA, and I've been really trying to dive into the lager game, which we don't brew as many lagers as I'd like.
Yeah.
But I think that could be turning around. I think the distro market's starting to show that people want. Well, the price points are getting all messed up too, so it's almost like bang for your buck.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean that's something I just want to brew beer. I don't want to have to figure out the price point side of things.
For sure. For sure. So what's your take on also, first of all, you've mentioned IPA a few times. Are you a West Coast guy? Are you a hazy guy?
West Coast for sure. I don't drink hazies, dude.
Yeah.
I
Why
just,
don't
well
you drink
that
hazies?
I don't necessarily love that fucking haze yeast bomb thing. And my problem ish I've had with IPAs recently, when you order or you're at a brewery, it just says IPA.
Mhm.
I'm starting to notice a lot of people aren't listing what kind of IPA it is.
Yeah.
They're not saying, West Coast. It might say American IPA, and it comes out of haze bomb, and I'm like, God dang, like, oh no.
It's a refreshment issue for me. Like if I'm gonna sit down and have pints, like to me, I'm always interested in sampling, tasting, like learning. But like if I'm gonna sit down and I'm gonna have pints, it's not. I can't. I don't know. I can't do a session with hazy because it for me there is it gets heavy on my palate after a while, and I like something that's a little bit more crisp.
Well, I just don't understand the whole how can the judges at JBF and CBC go through 375, 425 plus and deem that like this one's the winner. There's this brewery out of Nebraska. It's called Corn Coast Brewing. I can't remember the exact order, but they basically went like 2022 GABF Gold, 2023 World Beer Cup Silver, 2023 GABF Gold in the hazy IPA. So 3 big categories with almost 400 each, and they got gold and silver in all 3. Like, how good is that beer? How could that possibly got past 370 plus other beers?
Yeah.
All these hazy beers, like stuff like that. And I'm not knocking them at all. I'm sure it's a great beer. Yeah. Stuff like that makes me wonder if JBF is rigged ever. Like, how? Like I said, I'm sure that beer is amazing.
It's gotta be. Yeah.
But sure. How good could that hazy IPA possibly be for 3 straight of the biggest competitions in a row?
Yeah, man.
2 golds and a silver or 2 silver or something. Or medal all 3 competitions. That's insane.
Yeah. Hey, well, let me bounce this off you. So, talking lager still, but there's kind of these little hybrid lager type styles that have been coming out. West Coast pills, Italian pills. How do you feel about those beers personally?
I mean, West Coast pills, IPL. You tell me the difference.
Sure.
And that might even loop into a little bit of, I've had this like, I mean, I don't even really know what craft beer is anymore with like, 0 IBUs, IPAs, and like, can you call an IPA that? Or like, okay, what's a West Coast pills versus, okay, Italian pills? The hops, the this and that. I don't really read too much into it. I think call a beer whatever you want to call it and let the consumer either appreciate it or not. I totally enjoy West Coast pills, IPL, Italian pills, call it what you want. Give me that little hoppy blended with lager. I'm all in for it. just call it a hoppy lager. I don't care.
For sure.
But no, I mean, I think it's just kind of a mess of whatever you want to call it is fine with me.
Sure.
You could let the public decide, and then I'll either like it or not. But I guess to answer your question, if I see West Coast Pills, Italian Pills, and IPL up on the board, I'd pretty much just decide whichever had the best name. I'd probably order it.
For sure. Are you seeing more and more lager being, being on boards in your area on the store shelves?
Man, I don't really go to the liquor store that often, but our distributor wants us to make a year-round hazy, which we kind of are. I don't know if we're actually contract brewer for Kelsey Grammer's brewery now.
I did see that. See that.
Yeah.
Fraser.
Yeah, for Dr. Fraser, man.
That's right.
He's a pretty cool dude. Like super nice, chill, just hanging out at the brewery.
Yeah.
But he has a blueberry hazy, and then just it's called an ale. And it's the most beer tasting beer of all time, man. It's
beer.
So crisp, clean, nothingness, just a nice, easy beer. So yeah, that's kind of our market is, I don't know, our market's super weird, especially with our brewery, because we're like 4 breweries in one brewery. I don't know that the lager is it's definitely not where I want it to be, but I think most breweries in town have actually, in fact, one of the breweries in town, they just took off their year-round hazy and replaced it with a Pilsner because they were seeing that's moving more. And to be honest, price-wise of a double drop dry hopped hazy IPA versus a American Pilsner, like,
for sure.
Other than the time, like that's they changed that out on their board. So I think it is moving that way, because I think people do want to sit around and have 6 or 7. Well, like I said, I'm jaded on how many beers people can have at a brewery versus like how many I can have. I mean, I think people do want to have multiples and not have to order, half pours or anything like that. So
sure.
I pitched the idea we should do a lager mix pack at the beginning of the year next year, or at least for next spring. But mix packs are a nightmare for production breweries that don't have the equipment to stock a mix pack. But I think a lager mix pack would fly. There used to be this brewery that did a lager mix pack that had a Helles Pils, just a light lager, and then a Hefeweizen. And I used to get it every time I saw it because it'd be at the gas station. Yeah. But haven't really seen it much anymore. I don't know if they're just stopped doing mixed 12 packs or what. But as far as like a mix pack, that's as 4 good of styles as you'd want.
Yeah. Have you seen Kroger is selling the Helles from the place in Bend? Who is it?
Kirkland, Deschutes.
Deschutes. Have you had that beer?
I did. It was a very good beer. It won silver this year and it won gold at GABF. It was very good beer. I wonder if, I don't know how long it's been around, but the packaging I saw had the metal on it plus Deschutes. Typically they don't do that with like core brand and stuff. I wonder if Deschutes was like, no, we gotta put it on the boxes.
Yeah. I don't know, but that was an eye opener because I know that they had been doing that for a little while. I'd seen some Kirkland branded stuff, but then I always look at it and then I zoomed in and I'm like, wait, does that say Deschutes? That's crazy. Yeah.
That's crazy. I had it at the trade show floor over there at the BSG booth. It was actually right before they were about to tap that Cantillon. I was like, damn, what's everyone in line for? And I went up there to grab a beer. It was crazy because I was like, they were tapping it at 1 and I was literally there at like 12:59. He goes, you're going to have to wait till 1. And I was like, oh, you don't serve till 1? And he goes, oh, no, we're about to tap the Cantillon. I was like, oh, no, I want the Helles. He goes, oh, yeah, I'll get you. I was like, I'll get you Helles right now, man. Oh, fucking
that's staying on brand, dude. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. That's awesome.
But yeah, I mean, it was a really good beer too. I enjoyed that. I mean, obviously, Deschutes is a super reputable brewery.
Sure.
But I think the Kirkland, seeing something Kirkland, you automatically are like, well, that's gotta just be an off brand of something, or it can't be that good.
Yeah. No, they went after it, getting Deschutes to make it. So yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah, I
Well,
don't know
listen.
what. Oh, go ahead.
No, you.
Oh, I was gonna say I don't know what Deschutes regular lager is. We only really get fresh squeeze around here.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't even know if because again, I mean, I'm not looking at store shelves all that often. The last time I tried to find something, I actually went out and I was looking for like 100% gluten-free beer, like completely gluten-free ingredients, gluten-free brewery. Because the one thing that I found is, you know, if I want alcohol, I can have a gin and tonic. I can drink some bourbon.
Oh
You
yeah,
know what I mean? But there's an occasion for beer, right? Like there's actually like a time for beer. And it was bumming me out a little bit. And so I was actually digging. It's so difficult to actually find anything that's 100% like actually gluten-free, not somebody that's just using Clarex as well.
right.
But yeah. Is there any gluten-free breweries in your area?
Well, actually, the Fraser, so it's actually called Faith American Brewing Company.
Okay.
It's literally just called ale.
Okay.
And we can say it's gluten free because it's under. Oh man, was it? It's like
It's under like 10 or 20
10,
parts, something like that.
10 is. I think it was 10, and ours came in at like 6 or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I mean, not the. I don't think we'd ever really advertise it as that because it actually might turn some people off.
Sure.
But if people ask at the pubs,
Yeah.
you can say that's gluten free.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, other than that, that's really the only one I know of. But they sent it
For
off to
sure.
the lab and got it tested, and we do the Clarex and the ALDC and all that in it, and just
Nice.
strips out. So, yeah, like I said, it's the most. It's just the cleanest, lightest ale,
For
and
sure.
it's just
For
called
sure.
ale.
Yeah. Hey, well, so if you were to go back in time and have a beer with a younger version of yourself, what career or life advice would you give that younger man?
Oh man. Well, the reason I moved to Wichita is because I got drunk and got arrested. I'd probably tell him not to fucking throw the credit card machine reader out the cab window and get arrested.
Yeah.
But then again, that led me to Wichita Brewing Company, which I'm the happiest I've ever been. But oh gosh, probably career like, yeah, I don't know, man. That's tough because I feel like everything I've kind of done is like each year I've been in this industry, I just feel like I'm getting like better in the sense of like learning more or feeling better about this or educating myself or just happier.
Sure.
Yeah, man, I don't know. That's a really tough question. Y'all have
You're
to think
good.
about that.
No worries. No worries.
I'll probably just stay the course. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Listen to people. Don't think you know it all, but I've never really had that. I never really thought I knew anything.
Sure.
So,
I like it.
yeah.
So, is there anything exciting you guys have coming up either for Less Hate, More Lager or there at Wichita Brewing that you want to plug?
Well, the least exciting thing is we don't have air conditioning and it's about to get pretty crazy in there. So there's that.
That is unexciting. I agree.
But no, so I'm doing a lager garden festival in October. So that'll be cool. That's just with the company. But for like the Less Hate More Lager brand, just still plugging away at the, trying to get this like mental health something for our industry off the ground. It's going to require 1 million more conversations with 1 million more people. But I'm just staying on it about every day, talking to brewers and things like that. And then hopefully by GABF and for sure by CBC in Philly next year. have something to like start fundraising. I have a mental health beer fest every year in January. I bring in people from all over the country. So I'll definitely need it done by then.
For sure.
But yeah, still just plugging away at that and still just kind of making content and growing the Less Hate More Lager brands, doing collabs. I've done 6 so far. I'm going to try to get 12 for the year. And so then got one more in Texas in 2 weeks. And then probably take June, July off and get back to it August, September.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I
So
love it.
busy, busy, busy. I've only slept in my bed 2 weekends in 2025.
Out there on your grind, man. I like it.
Something like that.
How can people stay connected with you online?
Yeah. So, well, you actually can't connect to me right now. I did an NFL schedule release tomorrow, and I was being kind of ornery with some Eagles fans. And I got banned from messages because I told some Eagles fans how I felt. And Instagram said I can't message people for 3 days. So whatever, live and learn. But yeah, Cody _Sherwood, spelled different than my last name. But then Less Hate More Lager, Instagram. Yeah, and then follow Wichita Brewing. Actually, it's funny at CBC, people were stopping me. They're like, "Oh, I love your content," but I gotta ask, like, what brewery do you work for? Like no one really knew what brewery I worked for. They were just like, "Oh yeah, we know you from the memes of the Less Hate More Lager," but like, what brewery?
Sure.
So
Sure.
Wichita Brewing Company, Tallgrass Brewing Company, Faith American Brewing Company. Yeah, all that.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Well, Cody, I appreciate you coming on. Stick on after we jump off the air just so I can chat with you real quick. And to everybody out there listening, thanks for tuning in today. Please make sure to hit up my wonderful sponsors, both Blickman Engineering and Brewed Fiscally. David over there and the good people at Blickman. Make sure to give them your support. Keep your eyes open because we are going to have more podcasts rolling, I believe, next week. Next week, I have more. I think next week is Shan Ferments if you're an Instagram person. So stick with us there. But once again, if you ever find yourself in Wichita, make sure to support the work that Cody is doing. Make sure to give him a follow on Instagram and check out the Less Hate More Lager podcast. Until next time, have a good night, everybody.
Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely, brother.